Hello! Today I'm going to talk about flat dreads. I've been running my Dreadlocks Q&A for quite a while now, and the topic of flat dreads has come up multiple times, so I'm going to make a video dedicated just to flat dreads. If you've got young dreads, then chances are you've experienced some dreads being flat, and this may lead some people to worry, because as you see the dreadlocks developing and growing, and instead of them growing into the sort of long, straight, round tubes that you've pictured, they are turning into sort of flat lumps. And I think this is why the question has come up a few times, because, you know, when you see this happening and you worry about it, you want to know what you can do to stop them becoming just flat dreads, and you want the round dreads. First off, I'm just going to talk about why you get flat dreads. When dreadlocks are young, they're really soft. They're just hair that's sort of loosely squished together. It's not a solid dreadlock yet. And because it's soft, it can be easily pressed. You know, it's not solid, it doesn't have sort of a solid structure inside. So these dreads are more mature, so they're more solid. You squeeze them, but you know, they have resistance. They're really compressed. Young dreads aren't so heavily compressed, and so they are capable of being shaped. And they get shaped when you sleep on them and through daily activities. So it's common to get flat dreads at the back of your head if you sleep on, you know, this way, or on the side of your head if you sleep this way. And that's just because soft dreadlock is getting squished down when you sleep on it, and then it just stays like that. It has no reason to become rounded out again. So this is a perfectly normal thing. When your dreads are young and soft, they're going to get squashed and misshapen, just because they're not solid enough to hold any particular shape, and they're just as likely to stay round as they are flat. So as the dreadlocks get older, the hairs tighten and compress, so they shrink up and everything squeezes in. And what happens then is, once they get tighter and stronger, then they're going to hold the shape that they sort of squeeze into. So I can take this dread and squeeze it all I want, but it's still a round shape. It just sort of bounces back to its round shape. And what happens most of the time with flat dreads, so when my dreads were young, they will have been flat at the back and on the side where I slept on them. Then as they get older, they tighten and sort of shrink up and tighten, and they tighten into the round shape. When the dreads mature and tighten, they don't always tighten evenly, and that's where you get lumps and bumps, but they do sort of tighten sort of inwards into the round shape. And the new growth that grows out of your head, as long as the section that it grows out of is roughly even, so if you have a square section or a round section or a triangular section or whatever, as long as it's sort of even, the dreadlock that grows out is going to be round too, nice tube shape too. If you have a long rectangular section, then obviously the dreadlock that grows out is going to be wide, and that's why Congos are often flat. So so this Congo is kind of flattened out because it's taken two dreadlocks next to each other and Congoed together, and because those two sections are next to each other, it means that its section is now wider this way than this way, so the dreadlock is now growing flat. But the dreadlocks that have a square section or a round section or an equal size section, those are going to grow out round. Again, when it's really near the root, they're going to be flatter because the new growth is a little bit soft there, but as it gets a little bit further down, it gets round. So maybe the first inch or so of my hair still flat, just because it's not matured, it's not as tough as the dread further down, but all the rest is round. So given enough time, all the dreadlocks should come out round and how you picture them to be, as long as the sections are sort of roughly not sort of elongated. But in the short term, that does mean that you still have flat dreads until they're mature. There's not a whole lot you can do about it, apart from, you know, every time you come out the shower, you can palm roll them. Now, I often say that I don't believe that palm rolling particularly helps when it comes to the dreadlocks maturing or actually permanently locking in loose hairs, but when you come out the shower and the dreads are still wet, when you roll them, if you palm roll them, it squeezes them into a round shape, and then when they dry, they kind of hold that shape. So it's kind of like if you sleep on wet hair and then you wake up and then your hair is all stuck in that shape. Same thing happens with palm rolling wet dreads, so they dry and kind of roughly hold the shape that you've palm rolled into them, and that'll make them look less flat until, you know, you sleep on them again and they'll get flattened out because they're still soft. I don't palm roll my hair, and I don't do anything to my hair other than wash and dry it, and you can see that they're all, you know, round. You can give them long enough to mature and they will all sort of tighten and squeeze up into the round shape, and you know, they get flattened when you sleep on them, but then they get sort of bashed around in your daily life too. So let's say it gets flattened one way when you sleep on it, next day you might sleep on it and it gets flattened another way, and then you sleep on it the next day and it gets flattened a different way, and then over time they will end up round because it's getting sort of squished and mushed on all sides as much as the other sides. So just to conclude, short term, dreadlocks will be flat when they're young because you're sleeping on them and things and they're soft. You can help remedy this in the short term by palm rolling them when they're wet, and that will squeeze them into a round shape because they're soft, and if they're able to be squeezed flat by sleeping on them, you can roll them round again and just sort of keep them in whatever shape you want until they get matured, and then when they do mature they should tighten into the right tube shape, and the new growth will also grow in the tube shape as well. Hope this helped clear up some worries or anxieties, you know, being scared about having flat dreads. There are of course extreme cases where you can get dreads that kind of have a sort of paddle shape at the end, and these can come around from a multitude of reasons. I think the most common reasons for getting really flat paddle ended dreads is either if you're going with natural neglect dreadlocks and they're growing sort of as they wish and they're going from really soft, so I'm not going from a back combed lump or a twist and ripped lump, it's just going from loose hair, then that can sort of get squeezed into whatever shape it wants, and that can obviously be rather flat at the tip. But again, as the dreadlock grows out, as long as the section that it's formed, now because it's a natural or a neglect section, it could be whatever size section it's decided to be, but if it's a roughly equal size section then it will come out round, and if it's an elongated section it will still be flat. And another reason for paddle dreadlocks is if you have really curly hair, it's sometimes possible for the tip of the dreadlock to sort of fold in on itself and lock again, and then they can get really sort of thick at the tip. But you should be able to see that happening before it happens, because it shouldn't just happen overnight, and you can, if you wish, try to stop it from doing that, or if you really hate the paddle tips, cut them off. Again, hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions regarding, feel free to leave them in the comment section and I will answer them ASAP. Thanks for watching. Bye.